My name is Clark, and I am one of 3 people who can truthfully say that they have time traveled. And it's not what you think it's like. I'm not really certain how they selected us. I was working on my bachelor's degree at my state university when I was approached by the team. Project BTA OW33 is what they called it. No cool name like Project X or Project Alpha Time Warp or anything along those lines. Just BTA OW33. Whatever that means. They approached me and asked if I'd like to take part in an experiment in exchange for my tuition being paid for. I only had a year left in school, but those 2 semesters were going to cost me $32,000. So, of course I said yes. When I asked what the experiment was, they told me that it was extremely secretive. I would be finding out details the day of. Then I could decide to back out if I didn't want to participate. About 6 weeks went by and I was basically on call to be ready to go wherever they needed me. And finally I got the call. I live in Atlanta, and the team had the 3 of us meet up in a parking deck about 20 minutes outside the city. Once there, we all got in one of those short school buses and they took us to the northern Georgia mountains. It was about a 2.5-hour drive and we didn't really get much time to get to know each other. We were under strict rules not to reveal information about ourselves or talk to each other on the bus ride over. The last couple of miles were on a rocky dirt road leading down a mountain. The bus parked in a small, maybe half-acre stretch of grass. The grass was freshly mowed and I could tell by sight and smell. The alcove of grass was enclosed by large trees from a surrounding forest. "All right," a man stood up from his seat at the front of the bus. "We're here. I'll brief you all once we get inside the house." As we got off the bus one by one, we could see in the center of the clearing was a building. It had one very large window on the side, basically encompassing the entire wall. Every other wall was back on the outside, and I could see through the window that the inside was painted white. There was a large, silver metal ring that surrounded the house. It came about 3 inches off the freshly mowed grass, and it was about a foot wide and had lights coming out from drilled holes all the way around it. "Watch your step, and please, don't step on top of this ring," the man said. "Once we get inside, just go ahead and take a seat." We all stepped over the ring and made our way out into the house. The house, as the man called it, was made up of only one room. Inside, there were 4 chairs around a rather large circular table. The chairs, tables, walls, and 1 lamp were all white. The only thing that wasn't white in the room were the pair of bookshelves against each wall, both empty. After we all took our seats, the man introduced himself. "Alrighty, welcome. My name is Dr. Olson. I'm glad you all decided to take part in this. To take part in history. As we told you all, this is extremely sensitive information. After my explanation of what this experiment consists of, I'll ask if you want to all continue. Understand?"
"What if we don't want to continue?"
a woman said, about my age, with fiery red hair.
"Then we know this super secretive information, right? And you're just gonna, let us walk out of here?"
The man gave a smile. He knew this would be asked. "Yes, you are free to leave here knowing what the experiment consists of. However, the university and I are confident of 3 things. 1, you won't want to leave. 2, the university attorneys are rather powerful, and you all already signed the NDAs. And 3, no one will believe you if you tell them." Silence filled the room. The redhead slouched back in the chair, a nonverbal, "Well, go on then." "The experiment is time travel." I smiled, but wasn't sure why. The others seemed to snort a little in amusement. The tensions in the room seemed to release. Now, I know it sounds, crazy. I've heard it all before. I'm not asking you to believe in me,
I'm asking you to just sit in this room, observe, and tell me what happens." And we all nodded in agreement. A couple of okays filled the room. The doctor carried on. "All right, this is how it will work. I'm going to drive up to the control center. It's just about 5 minutes up the mountain. I have a couple of colleagues there as well. From there, I will flip the switch in layman's terms." When Dr. Olson began his next sentence, he leaned forward and his face took a very stern, angry father quality. "Do not leave this room. After I walk out, do not leave. Do not leave until I come back down the mountain. Walk back inside this room and tell you that you can leave. I have done this experiment before, but not on humans. I know it works. I know it's safe. I can promise you this is safe. I cannot promise you safety, though, if you leave this house." And I remember the air shifting to an uneasy feeling. Are you sure this is safe? What you've tested it on? What it's gonna feel like?" a scrawny blonde guy said, who couldn't have been older than 21. The doctor continued. "I know it is safe. No animal that I've used has been affected by this. I've used rats and progressed up to dogs. No bruises, no cuts, no change in behavior. And to be honest with you all, I don't know what you all should expect. I'm not sure if it feels like a tingle, a sting, a pinch, or anything else. This is the first human trial, which is why you need to pay attention to any sensation that you feel." Wait, okay. If we are actually about to time travel, where or when are we even traveling to? I asked. "You will be launching 3 hours into the future. Once activated at the control site, this building will disappear. My team and I will be on standby for 3 hours and then poof. The house will be back with all of you in it. 3 hours into the future." And a long silence followed. I'm skeptic of just about anything, but something about Dr. Olson's tone, his body language, the way that he was explaining it. It was hard for me to doubt. He was dead serious. When it was clear there were no more questions, Dr. Olson looked at his watch, stood up, and cleared his throat. "Alrighty then. It is 1:22 p.m. right now. So by the time that I make it to the control site, it should just be before 1:30. Warm-up takes only about 2 minutes, so we will mark your projected arrival time at 4:30. Are there any questions or concerns?" And no one spoke. "Okay. I will see you all in 3 hours. Or, from your perspective, just a couple of minutes." The doctor winked, nodded, and closed the door behind him after adding, "Safe travels." The three of us stood from our chairs as we watched the doctor drive off, and then we turned to one another, the tension yet again easing. "Well, he sure knows how to make an entrance and an exit," the redhead said. "Yeah, no kidding," the blonde kid answered. Nice to meet you, fellow time travelers." We all chuckled a bit, the nervous sort of laughter. "My name's Ryan." "I'm Clark," I replied back with a handshake to follow. "Emma," she said with a smile that could make any man or woman's head turn. We exchanged pleasantries, talking about our schooling and how we were selected. Emma was the first to ask what we were all thinking. "So, what's the chance this is legit? I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to be the world's first time traveler, but I feel like this is going to end in a dud. Or do you guys just think that we're being pranked?" "Yeah," Ryan replied. "When he was explaining everything, I thought that maybe it would be a prank. Like this may be an actual experiment from the university, but it's an experiment to see if they can convince people they time traveled." "That's meta," I quipped. "Oh, guys, look!" Emma was staring out of the large window. The ring that surrounded the building was slowly getting brighter. It looked like 100 laser pointers slowly brightening, shining up into the overcast sky. "Does this mean that we're in the 2-minute warm-up?" I said, already knowing the answer. "I guess so. God, my heart is racing." "Mine too." Yeah, same. And we all stood, perfectly still, watching those skinny beams of light growing brighter until it was nearly blinding. I turned to look at Emma. Her pupils were closing to the size of a pencil tip, maybe smaller. Her gaze, along with Ryan's, was locked on the beams. I could see their faces getting more illuminated each second that passed. And second after second, it just kept getting brighter. Brighter and brighter and brighter until it was like we were being engulfed by the sun. And in less than a second, it was dark. I chose my words carefully. Less than a second. It was not like turning off a light. It was not like shutting your eyes. It was faster. It was an instant. I saw Emma's pupils quickly grow large as the absence of light from out the window met her retina. The inside of the house was still illuminated, thanks to one lamp in the main room. Outside the window was nothing. Not nighttime, not black, not pitch black, nothing. It almost had a color to it, but one that I can't explain. It gave off no light. It was the color that a blind man sees. It was the color of our sleeping nights in between dreams. It was the color of death. It was nothing. We all kind of looked around after a minute of silence, all staring out the same window into the void of absence.
"What the fuck is happening?"
Emma said in a shaky voice. I don't...
"My heart has stopped beating,"
Ryan said bluntly. I saw Emma raise 2 fingers to her neck. I didn't have to. I could feel it. It was one of the first things that I noticed. When I was staring at Emma's pupils as the light reached its crescendo, my heart was racing. And as soon as the light disappeared, so did the rhythmic thumps of my heart.
Fuck. What the fuck is happening?"
Emma began to panic.
Wait. This is just part of it,"
Ryan started.
"I'm really freaked out too. Trust me. Obviously something's happening. If you believe the doctor, which I'm starting to, we may be, traveling through time."
And I actually agreed with him. Yeah, you're right. We just need to pay attention to this so we can explain later. Okay, heartbeat stopped. Check. We're still alive. Check. And that void abyss thing. Check. We turned to the window in unison.
"I don't like looking at it,"
Emma said.
"It's unnatural. It's, I don't know, not supposed to be. It's not black, but it has no light, I don't think."
She wasn't wrong. I'm kind of glad I don't have a heartbeat right now because I think that I might have a heart attack, I joked, and anxious laughs filled the small space. We finally moved from our spots where we were staring out the window. It was a relief to move around the room, and I'm not sure why. We were quiet for a couple of minutes. Emma was sitting in a chair with her knees tucked up to her chest, occasionally checking her non-existent pulse or looking at her hands. Ryan leaned against the back wall, staring out the window. I pulled up a chair next to Emma's and joined her in quiet atmosphere. Our peaceful still was broken with Ryan's words.
"Hey, Clark, Emma, there's something out there."
We looked at him, and then out the window.
"What do you mean?"
Emma asked.
"Out there. I can see things."
Your mind's just playing tricks on you. Like when you're in a pitch black room. Your mind will make you see lights and shapes and stuff.
"No. It's there. Look out there. You can see, I don't know how to describe it. Just look."
Emma and I both turned our attention once again to the emptiness. It was still. It was quiet. It was unmoving. Abnormal. Yet it felt like it was meant to be there. Like it was at home. Like we were its intruders.
"I don't see anything."
Yeah, me either. Ryan continued to stare out, unflinching. Emma and I stayed at the table, fiddling with our fingers and nervously finger-tapping. I'm not sure how much time had passed before the silence was broken. All I know is it felt like a long time. Maybe an hour, maybe 2.
"Well, this is
taking quite some time, isn't it?
Seriously, I feel like we've been in here for a couple of hours.
No, not even a second has passed.
Emma and I glanced looks of confusion at each other.
What do you mean? Not even a second has passed,
he repeated, his gaze still locked on the void.
Time doesn't pass in here. When you look into it, you see. No time has passed. No time will pass. When you look into it, it all makes sense.
Emma and I locked eyes once again, yet this time it was less confusion and more terror.
Come on, man, stop messing with us.
But he didn't reply. He didn't even blink. Days passed, I think. Emma and I sat and talked a lot. We did not grow hungry, tired, or thirsty. We didn't even have to use the bathroom. We came to a few realizations. One was that there was no temperature in the room. It was an absence of any heat or coolness. Air was non-existent. After roughly 12 hours or so, we estimated, our bodies began to not breathe automatically. We didn't need oxygen. The other realization was about the void. Ryan had been staring off into it for the entirety of our stay, save for the first couple of minutes. And he had not moved. He had not blinked. Sometimes he mumbled something about time or the universe, but most of it was gibberish. Emma and I decided that maybe something is in there. We can't see it, but Ryan can, and it's driving him insane. We decided it's best not to look at it for too long. After weeks of being stuck in that room, Emma and I were growing increasingly restless. We started arguing about little things and eventually stopped talking altogether. Sometimes I would hear her sob, trying to be quiet. I spent a lot of my time crying as well. No tears would come out, though. Emma and I, ignoring each other, was halted one day after Ryan simply stated, loud and clear,
"I'm going out."
It was the first time Emma and I had even looked at each other in a couple of days. It was the first Ryan had spoken coherent words in weeks. He didn't look at us when he said it. And for some reason, neither of us protested. Maybe out of boredom, depression, or curiosity. We didn't stop him. He walked over to the glass door and stood for a moment, never taking his eyes off of the emptiness. He spoke to us, still facing the nothingness.
"I'm gonna learn its secrets. Its power. I will become a god. And it welcomes me."
And he opened the door. He reached his hand out into the void. It looked like an optical illusion, exactly where the doorframe was. As soon as he broke through the plane, his hand disappeared. All I could see was his wrist with nothing attached. He brought his arm back inside the room, and his hand was missing. There was exposed bone, flesh, and tissue. But he didn't bleed. He didn't scream. He smiled. He then walked out into the void, looking like a ghost walking through a wall. Emma and I stared in horror. She ran over to me and we cried together for a while. She said 7 words to me, through thick sobs that chilled me to the bone, the first real sensation I've had since coming here. Are we gonna be here forever? Emma and I spent a lot of our time crying. What else was there to do? Imagine it. You're stuck in a room with nothing to do but stack chairs or topple over empty bookcases in frustration. We tried to have sex. It was just another thing to do to pass the time. But with no blood pumping through our veins, it made things difficult. We played all of the name games, invisible tic-tac-toe, tongue twisters, you name it. We can't exactly play I Spy because our options for colors are either white or void-esque. Sometimes we try and sleep to no avail. We just lie there, occasionally together and sometimes apart, eyes closed with no rhythmic rise and fall of our chests. No soft sound of a heartbeat. Just utter silence. I didn't think I'd ever make it out. I'm not sure of the total time that I spent in there. It's hard to tell and grew more difficult as time went on. At first, it was easy. You could tell a couple of seconds had passed, and then minutes grew to hours. But especially after Ryan left, it was difficult. There was no rising sun. There was no moonlit sky with a glittering of stars. There was no feeling tired, no sleeplessness or droopy feeling that settled in after a long day. It felt as if my internal clock was reworking itself to be, well, broken. Emma and I were starting to really lose it, but not in the same way Ryan did. To curb our sad days, we played pretend like we were kids. I'm not sure if this was an actual decision on our parts, or if our minds were making us do it in return for a flake of sanity. Sometimes one of us would be a waiter and the other would be eating at a fancy restaurant. Sometimes we'd play doctor and one person would have to undress and be examined. In some scenarios, she would be my wife. I'd come home from a long day at work and she'd have dinner prepared for me. She'd call the kids down and we'd pretend to eat, and I would tell her all about my day while sneaking table scraps to our dog. Our favorite scenario was strangers. At least, that's what I call it now. Looking back to it anyway. We didn't have a name for it then. I'd be sitting at the table, pretending that I was at a bar or a club. She'd walk up and grab a seat, and I'd give her a couple of glances and side eyes before telling the bartender that I would buy her a drink. She would try to contain her glowing smile and would bat her eyelashes at me. Then she'd make her way from across the table, across the bar, and take the chair next to mine. I'd ask her name, and then we'd slowly go from surface-level conversations into the world of getting to know each other deeper. Childhood memories, fears, aspirations, secrets, dreams. Then eventually one of us would break character and we'd laugh. We would also write plays in our head for each other and perform them. Or we would make scripts from TV shows or movies and act them out. Mostly improv. Those were the good moments. The secure ones. Those escapes for us were equal to the escapes of regular people in the real world, who are watching TV or scrolling through an app so they don't have to face the reality that engulfed them. But at some point, reality always sets in. Our entire world was in that room. I started to forget what my mother's face looked like. I started to forget what my face looked like. And one day, or night, or whatever, I looked off into the void. Emma and I treated it like someone would treat a naked homeless man screaming at them. It's best not to look for too long, but it's okay to glance or catch it in your peripherals. I stared off into it, wondering about its color, its absence. I wondered where we were physically. Were we somehow in another dimension? Were we being observed now? As I stared off, I saw something. I know I did. It was impossible to miss, like a brush stroke on a blank canvas. Yes, it was there. It was something that existed in that vast expanse of nothing. A tree. It was a tree. A perfectly symmetrical pine tree. Almost like those abstract inkblot tests used for psychiatric evaluations. It was just like that, sitting dead center in my vision. It wasn't like spotting a tree from inside a window in the real world. No. I wasn't there with the tree. I was merely observing it. I felt like an alien from another planet witnessing it. The tree didn't know that I was there, and I didn't know where it was. And suddenly, a strong and swift open palm made contact with my cheek and I heard Emma yell, "Snap the fuck out of it, Clark, please!" Ugh! My face stung, but the pain was dulled and I noticed that she was crying. "Whoa, hey, what's wrong? Oh God, you're really back. You really got back, thank God," she said through quivering lips. "You were just staring out there for fucking days. I couldn't do anything to snap you out of it." Days? Yes. God, I would cover your eyes or shake you, but nothing was working, so...
She kept talking, but her voice sounded like it was falling down a well, as my own thoughts took over my attention. Days. I looked outside for 10 seconds, 20 tops. There was no way days had gone by. I told her this. What? Are you fucking around? You stood there, right there, still as a statue for so fucking long. I was screaming, I was shaking you, I was pleading with you. I swear, I am telling you the truth. I grabbed her hands consolably. All I remember is seeing something out there. And then, I don't know. I don't know what happened. What did you see? Her crying had subsided a little and her sadness was replaced with curiosity. I think it was a tree. A tree? Yeah, well, kinda. It had a motion to it, like it was growing. Not from the ground like a normal tree, but it was spreading, I guess. Like when you take the netting off of a Christmas tree and all the branches fall out and the tree looks fuller. It's kind of like that, but constantly expanding, like an optical illusion. She looked at me as if I told her that I had cancer. An expression of sympathy tangled with worry. She let out a heavy breath. I was so worried you were gonna leave like he did. I hugged her and scratched the top of her head in an attempt to comfort her. Then she grabbed my neck and kissed me lightly. It wasn't the first time that we had kissed. We had plenty of times before. I don't know how it started. I can't even remember our first one. It was too long ago. But every so often, we'd look at each other and kiss. Was it a relationship or boredom? I knew everything about her, it seemed, but I don't know. I was stuck there with her. What else were we going to do? Would we have gotten along on the outside? In the real world? If this experiment worked, would we be together? I don't know. A lot of time passed since Emma slapped me to snap out of it. We were more quiet than usual, more thoughtful because of the events that had occurred. She brought it up first, interrupting our previous conversation. So, hey, let's say we make it out of here, whether that be in 1,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000 or whatever. Uh-huh. Well, you know how you were looking out the window and days passed in a couple of seconds? What if that's the best thing to do? To pass those years. Maybe if we just look out, it'll feel like a couple of hours and then boom, we're back to reality. I had wondered about that too. What if we don't snap out of it though? What if we end up like Ryan? What if we're just kind of stuck like that forever? Hypnotized. I know. I thought about that, sure, but what? But I don't know. What's our other option? Realistically, we can't keep living like this. We can't keep spending every day going through the waves or talking or not talking and being in silence and laughter and crying. I'm losing my fucking mind, and I know that you are too. I tightened my lips together and my silence answered her. So she continued. What's worse? Spending 1,000,000,000,000 years in this room until you pull your hair out and slowly slip into madness, or looking at that fucking abyss of nothing. Yeah, there's a chance we'll go off the rocker like Ryan and hypnotically walk out the door, but is it worth it? I think so. We had spent so much time in there. I don't know how long, but it felt like multiple lifetimes. If this ended in death, I welcomed it. I knew we had to do it. It was our only option. Okay. We'll barricade the door. We'll put the table, the bookshelves, and everything else in front of it. It's at least one line of defense against us leaving. Yeah, it's no guarantee, but I like the idea. And so we did it. The idea that we could be out there in a couple of hours was the only motivation that we needed. And after the furniture was moved, we sat on the floor in the middle of the room. Our legs were crossed and we faced each other. terrified.
Yeah, I know. I am too.
What if we never see each other again? What if we never see anyone again? What if this is it? Like, it?
I grabbed her hands and pulled her a little closer before replying. No matter what happens, I'm grateful that I had you here with me. I couldn't have been here alone. This place is hell. But it would have been so much worse without you. She gave me a nod and smiled, and I returned the same gesture. We both adjusted our bodies, still in a sitting position, to face the window. I looked to my right and admired Emma's gaze out the window, just as I did when we were transported here. I squeezed her hand.
Ready to spend eternity together?
She said with a shaky breath, almost laughing. You know it. And with that, we peered off into the nothingness. It's hard to describe what I saw. The first thing I saw in that vacuum of the void was once again the tree. It moved and it breathed and it acted like it had before. And after a while, I noticed that I couldn't see the walls of the room anymore. It was as if I was enveloped in the darkness, like I was a lone astronaut without any planets or stars for guidance. I couldn't feel my butt against the floor anymore, nor Emma's hand gripping mine. In fact, I couldn't really feel anything. It was like I was slowly losing each of my senses. That horrifying nothing color slowly dissipated, and the tree did as well. The best way that I can describe what came next is by comparing it to something that you all have seen. If you close your eyes, you still see some light. You see shapes and objects and other things your brain tells you to see. If you stare at a wall, a blank wall, there's almost a movement to it, a static-like sensation on the wall that you never really notice until you focus. That's what came next. As the nothing disappeared, I could see the shapes in the darkness. Random patterns, stars, and static filled my vision. I felt like I was falling. The randomness of the shapes took form into my most nostalgic memories. Things I didn't even know I remembered from the trenches of my mind. I felt this itch, almost. I swear in those movements I didn't have a body, didn't have eyes, yet I could see. I felt like someone moved my still active brain into a jar to keep me alive, and that's what I was experiencing. Just my brain, doing its thing with no outputs or inputs. I felt a prickling, but I wasn't sure where I felt it. I existed, but not a physical sense. I thought that I was dead. I hope that is not what being dead is like. And then faster than a light switch with no sound effect, no transition of any kind, pop. I was back standing in that room. Sunshine made its way through the overcast sky and immediately flooded the window. I was not facing the window, though. I was facing Emma, with Ryan right behind her. Both of them were looking out the window, just as we were before everything went dark. My focus was on Emma's pupil, just as it was before. It did not change in size. Before I could begin to process what was happening, Ryan screamed louder than I thought physically possible. I jumped and I started to back away, but Emma didn't even flinch. Ryan grabbed the lamp from the table, smashed it on the ground, picked up a large piece of glass and pushed it through his chest and into his heart. His hands were bleeding and his chest was discharging blood by the pint. He died within a minute. And he was smiling the whole time. Emma, still unmoved, kept staring out the window. I was trying to process my thoughts, which were abundant. Ryan stabbing himself was the least of my concern, to be honest with you. I backed up against the wall opposite Ryan and slumped until I hit the floor. And I sat in a fetal position and I was praying that the doctor would come down the mountain. The experiment had worked, kind of. The room did disappear and we reappeared exactly 3 hours into the future. Dr. Olson said that he installed the window in case that we could see lights or flashes. He did not know about the void. After Ryan's death, The university shut down Project BTA OW33. Pretty quickly, anyway. But I doubt that was the last the world would see of it. Dr. Olson can only hear the events that took place from my perspective. Emma is in a catatonic state. She hasn't spoken a word or made a noise since returning. She is completely unresponsive. There is no sign of her getting better. I visited her once at the home that she lives in now. And I'm never going back. She stares off at the walls the same way that Ryan stared off into the void. If there is a God out there, I just pray that she still isn't in there somehow. In that place. I hope her mind is free or at peace. You may be wondering why I am not catatonic. Why did I make it out okay? Did I see the same thing Ryan saw? I'm not sure. I try not to think about it. I have lived, subjectively, longer than anyone will ever have to experience. To suffer. I don't have the guts to kill myself, though I think about it often. I don't really care if I get into trouble with the law by sharing my story. It's therapeutic to share. And like Dr. Olson said from the beginning, no one's going to believe me anyway. Day-to-day life doesn't bother me. I don't mind interacting with people. I like eating food again and taking a nice hot shower. And I like knowing that I can die. That I will die. It's not the waking moments that disturb me, no. It's when I sleep. My dreams are awful and are almost always of that place. That room. The doctor says it's because that room is where my brain thinks that it has spent most of its life. He says that they will lessen as my stimuli from the real world increases. But dreaming isn't the worst part about sleeping. It's every other moment between dreams. As I slip away into oblivion, so does my body. And so do my senses. My mind is still active, but I am encompassed by the void, drowning in its emptiness. That color, that nothing. Every night it haunts me. I hope to God you never see it. Never realize it's there. Because when you do, it won't go away. Interred in the dirt to feed the eyeless, subterranean creatures of the earth, and I will howl because I know where you are going. I know where you are going. I know the secrets of this earth, as I knew the secrets of the one before it. I will bring about the end, and you cannot stop me. I read these tales, and you do not know with each that you read, with each you create and recreate, with each you retell, with each you claim ownership of, you beckon the end. For there will be some among you who will try to verify these tales. You will seek them out, and those that do so with passion will find that many of them are falsehoods, but some will be harrowing at the very least. Others will leave you scared for the rest of your fleeting days, and others still will leave you stripped of your flesh. And that flesh will be used to build more and more and more tales, twisted and stretched to cry out to more curious individuals. And I will smile, my teeth clenched together tightly, 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 until one cracks with a satisfying pop. My eyes unblinking, watching everything fall into place, wide and empty, weeping and shriveling with delicious, protracted agony. I am so excited. So very excited. Even as you read this, some among you are emboldened. The sick part of you which lusts for the end whispers into your mind, making you want to see the horror, the pain, the blood, the death. You want to see it. You want to see what lies hidden in the dark, beyond sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Come and see. And I will show you such wonderful things. I must have been 6 or 7 when I lived in Lebanon. The country was ravaged by war at the time, and murders were common and frequent. I remember during a particularly vicious era, when the bombings rarely stopped, I would stay at home, sitting in front of my television watching a very, very strange show. It was a kid's show that lasted about 30 minutes and contained strange and sinister images. To this day, I believe that it was a thinly veiled attempt on the part of the media to use scare tactics to keep kids in place, because the moral of every episode revolved around very uptight ideologies. Stuff like, bad kids stay up late, bad kids have their hands under the covers when they sleep, and bad kids steal food from the fridge at night. It was very weird, and in Arabic to top it all off. I didn't understand much of it, but for the most part, the images were very graphic and comprehensive. The thing that stuck with me the most, however, was the closing scene. It remained much of the same in every episode. The camera would zoom in on an old, rusted, closed door. As it got closer to the door, strange and sometimes even agonizing screams would become more audible. It was extremely frightening, especially for children's programming. But then a text would appear on the screen in Arabic reading, "That's where bad kids go." Eventually, both the image and the sound would fade out, and that would be the end of the episode. About 15 or 16 years later, I became a journalistic photographer. That show had been on my mind all my life, popping up in my thoughts sporadically. Eventually, I had had enough and decided to do some research. I finally managed to uncover the location of the studio where much of that channel's programming had been recorded. And upon further research and eventually traveling on site, I found out that it was now desolate and had been abandoned after the big war ended. I entered the building with my camera. It was burnt out from the inside. Either a fire had broken out or someone had wanted to incinerate all the wooden furniture. After a few hours of cautiously making my way into the studio and snapping pictures, I found an isolated, out-of-the-way room. After having to break through a few old locks and managing to break the heavy door open, I remained frozen in the doorway for several long minutes. Traces of blood, feces, and tiny bone fragments lay scattered across the floor. It was a small room, and an extremely morbid scene. What truly frightened me, though, what made me turn away and never want to come back, was the bolted, caged microphone hanging from the roof in the middle of the room. I've always had a terrible fear of being submerged completely in water. Not that I can't swim or anything. My dad made me learn. He said I almost drowned when I was really young. I was afraid of it because, for as long as I can remember, whenever I am underwater and look up at the surface, I see a woman reaching down to me with a warm smile, with glowing golden hair and dark blue eyes. Even if it's just in a bathtub. It always happened. It was just normal for me. But I never got used to it. It was unnerving, but also soothing at the same time. She always made me feel like it was okay. I still avoided it though, because I was just a kid and it was really freaky. I never told my dad about it as a kid, but I did ask him about my mom. He never wanted to talk about her. Sometimes he even got mad at me for trying too hard to bring it up.
It was only recently that I described this apparition to him. He nearly drove into a telephone pole. Obviously, he knew something. I asked him again about my mom, and he still wouldn't say much, except that she had died when I was very young, and that she loved me very much. He also admitted that her hair and her eyes were those colors, just like mine. So I did some research on my own, looking up her name for myself and on my birth certificate and trying to find any reference that I could. Any news clips about a boy nearly drowning, anything. I mostly wanted a picture, something that I could match to my guardian angel. Today, buried in our town library, I found it. Winchester. Mary Wright, 28. Drowned to death yesterday evening after climbing a razor wire fence and fleeing to a nearby reservoir. A funeral is scheduled by her family for the 25th. Mary was institutionalized just 6 months ago, after being found not guilty of attempted murder on grounds of insanity. Her husband, Daniel Wright, had acted quickly enough to rescue the infant child when she was found trying to drown him in a bathtub. That woman over there, in the corner of the room, is really a terrific tease. I don't even think that she means to be, but I've simply never encountered anyone like her. She's got this breezy powder blue sundress on, and stylish ankle-strap sandals on her pedicured feet. A girl as pretty as she is would never be interested in a guy like me. She's wearing those great panties today, too. I caught a glimpse of the lacy fabric clinging to the inside of her thighs while we were getting her prepared. Her legs had slid apart almost imperceptibly, and I had subtly craned my neck to see as much as I could. Still, I don't think anyone's noticed my unprofessional behavior, or even how obsessed with her I've become. In a different lifetime, maybe this woman and I would even have been friends. I'm friendly and very pleasant once people get to know me, and she looks like the kind of girl who values a nice guy with a good attitude. I certainly think that I could earn her attention. Oh well. She'll be gone within the next hour or two, out of my life forever, and so there's nothing to do except try and forget about her. It'd be easier, though, if she just didn't look so damn beautiful. Just outside the door, I can hear her family beginning to arrive. They're asking why she's not already out there and ready for things to begin. They really seem to want everything to go perfectly today. It looks like we're running late, I remark. It's the first thing that I've had the courage to say out loud in her presence. There's no response, but the soft smile on her lips fills me with pleasure. Muttering a shy goodbye, I disable the brakes on her casket beer and wheel her from the embalming lab into the reception area. It's a simple enough thing. It's all a part of the body's sleep process. Sleep paralysis, right? No big deal, really. Your body produces a chemical that paralyzes your body during REM sleep to prevent you from hurting yourself by thrashing about during your dreams. No big deal. Okay, so you opened your eyes and you can't move your body. It's the chemicals. Oh, you can keep trying to wriggle those toes, but it's not happening. Forget it. Just relax. It'll go away. It's fine. It's normal. Oh, now there's something pressing onto your chest. Real hard. It's making it hard to breathe. It's heavy. So very heavy. Whatever's on your chest. Chemicals. It's all chemicals. Stop trying to scream. It won't work. Your throat muscles are paralyzed too. You still can't breathe. You are staring at the blank ceiling. You can't stare anywhere else. Shadows flit across your vision, forming shapes you try not to think about. A clawed hand, a flash of jagged, shadowy teeth. All images from your subconscious. a face forming above yours, leering through black voided eyes. You think you hear sibilant whispering, angry hissing like a snake that's been disturbed. And suddenly, a sharp white light briefly flares in the room as a car pulls down the street, dispelling the shadows. And the weight is gone, and you can breathe, and your hands clench the sheets. You feel an eternity has passed, but it was all the work of a moment. You wriggle, just to prove to yourself that you can. You sit up, take a deep breath, and then laugh a little at yourself. Sleep paralysis. Stupid. You turn to shake your spouse awake, eager to share your experience. You feel paralyzed again, but it has nothing to do with sleep paralysis. You stare at the blood, the jagged wound in her throat, her wide, staring eyes, mouth opened in a soundless scream. You survived your old hag syndrome. But she didn't. Somewhere in West Philadelphia, you will find an old basketball court with a single ball lying in the middle. Pick it up and start shooting hoops. After a while, a small group of hooligans will approach you and challenge you to a fight, which you must accept. After the fight, you must go home and relay the events to your mother. She will then inform you that you have an aunt and uncle living in one of the districts of Los Angeles, and out of fear, she will send you to live there for an indefinite period of time. With your bags packed, go to the street corner and whistle for a cab. The cab that will pull up will bear the words "fresh" on the license plate, and upon closer inspection, novelty fuzzy dice will hang in the mirror. Although you will suddenly realize that cabs like these are extremely hard to find, not to bear any thought of it. At this point, you must point out in front of the car and say, "Yo homes to Bel Air." You will stop in front of a mansion, and it will be sometime between 7 and 8 o'clock, even though it will feel like you've been traveling mere seconds. Get your luggage and say, "Yo homes, smell you later." But do not turn back to face the cabbie. Walk up to the door, look over your shoulder once, and then knock on the door 3 times. If you follow these instructions, your life will get flipped and turned upside down.